The aviation career really from that point on in a squadron in the fleet. I had been in VR-32, which was a transport squadron. I had flown all over the States. I had fixed and worked on every kind of airplane we had, and I was ready now and primed to hit the fleet and go to Westpac, earn my keep. They put me in a squadron when I returned that had prop-driven airplanes. It was a fleet squadron, training squadron, and it was also next door to an early warning squadron that had trying to think of the version, the aircraft they had the Navy version of an Air Force plane, and they were the West Coast protection in case we had any kind of bombers come over the Pacific and stuff, or anybody tried to pull what they did in Pearl Harbor. And this squadron had, first they had F-2s, which was a funny looking airplane that had kind of rounded wings, and it could fly super. And then they had another airplane. There was an Air Force plane called the Scorpion, F-4, I forget the designation, and it could only fire rockets, which they thought if the bombers came over, the rockets, the 3.2 rockets would be able to knock it out. So they wanted something more with a heavier defense in it, and they wanted to keep it out in the fleet. So they used the home fleet there with Sidewinders. Sidewinders were the AIM-9 that were developed up at China Lake. And I have the privilege of being assigned up there and working with the Sidewinder and working with the Aero 47 bombing system. When I got to the fleet squadron, we went into the training squadron, which was props, and I thought, I'm really not ready to go back to props. I want to go to jets. Well, I found out that was a temporary billet there with the prop squadron, VAW-11, as a holding pattern until we could get our F-9F jets and be delivered all the tools and all the equipment and everything to become a new jet squadron, VA-56, Attack Squadron 56. All we had to do was sit there at the VAW squadron and go through our schools and our training, and eventually it took them about another 3 or 4 months to give us our first jets, which were F-9F-2s, straight wings. And they were learning aircraft for us. And fortunately, they sent us to what they developed at the time as NAM-TRADET. NAM-TRADET was the schooling outfit that came into existence in the mid-50s, and they needed them to go out to the fleet and actually have mock-ups of the airplanes that were coming off the assembly line so they could train the troopers how to use them before they deployed to Westpac. Westpac being the Pacific. The Atlantic Fleet went out of Norfolk. Westpac went out of the California bases. Westpac squadrons were normally formed up with all types of aircraft that were going to go on that carrier in a location, either up in Lemoore or on up in Northern California or at Miramar. They had 7 different kinds of airplanes that would make up the wing that was going to deploy aboard the carrier. The Navy said this is not efficient. Somehow we've got to change it so that we do not have to move a training outfit to each of the bases to train on that same airplane. Why not move all the airplanes that are going to come out and be Navy fighters, F-4s or F-9s or anything, to one location? Put them at the Master Air Base, call it Miramar, and that's the fighter. All the fighters will be trained at Miramar, with the idea of later on that it would be easy then to take the fighter squadrons and marry them into a wing and make the wing operate on the carrier as a unit with the 7 different types of aircraft. So I was fortunate enough to have picked a squadron that was going to be at Miramar, which was where I was at VR-32 and North Island. So I was a happy cat to be back in California. I also was privileged when I was in VAW-11 to go to the training on the F-7U Gutless Cutlass. And the Gutless Cutlass was the first fighter squadron we deployed with on the Bonhomme Richard. It was a real heavy aircraft. It was underpowered, had 2 jet engines that weren't really designed for the Gutless F-7U. It was designed for single-engine aircraft at half the weight, but the Air Force had gobbled up all the heavier jet engines and got preference because they were way ahead of us in, and I have to thank guys like the Air Force General LeMay for getting his way with the Air Force in getting 3-level maintenance into existence and getting the depot level, the fleet aircraft maintenance department level, and the squadron level of maintenance. Because the aircraft coming along the line, you couldn't master everything. You had to have training on individual aircraft, and you had to master that aircraft. You couldn't be a jack of all trades like we were prior to that concept. The Air Force figured that out when they came into existence, and that was in 1947. The Navy was forced into that, but we had a problem. To get all the squadrons, 7 squadrons, with an average of the attack and the fighter squadrons and the reconnaissance and stuff, all different airplanes, all different requirements, all different landing speeds and everything, and all different maintenance. You had to get some organization into that mess so that when you went aboard ship, the maintenance department had to be made up of guys from each of these squadrons that knew their personal or squadron gear that they could repair. The Air Force taught us that. So you had I level, intermaintenance people. You had O level, which was organizational squadron level, and you had depot level. Now, depot level could be a Navy facility or a civilian facility or an aircraft plant that built the aircraft. They could do the repair works, in-depth repair. Aircraft maintenance department, we use the terminology AIMD. That is intermediate maintenance. Whatever you could take off of an airplane, and you could have the repair talent in a repair facility, test equipment, you could put in an aircraft maintenance department, and you had a portion of the ship dedicated to the aircraft maintenance department, where the component out of the aircraft could come down and taken into the depot or the intermediate maintenance, be repaired, stay on the ship, and go right back to the aircraft. If the aircraft maintenance department could not repair it, it had to go back to depot, which means how many spare parts are you going to keep? How many spares can the design of the aircraft provide, and how many can the Navy buy? And what level of repair would it require, and what test equipment would it require? Can we get that test equipment and that repair bit and piece needed and stuff jammed onto a carrier? Well, it had to be proven. And that was the mid-50s. They edicted that we would all have 3-level maintenance, like the Air Force. We would have organizational level, which is a squadron. They would deploy on a ship. They would work on the flight deck. They would remove the subcomponents off of the aircraft, like the engine and any electric or electronic or component, a strut, a wheel, a tire, and they would send it to the intermediate function, AIMD, and they would have specialists in there specially trained how to repair at that level. And then if they couldn't repair it, it went to the depot, either the manufacturer or one of the other depots that specialized in that repair. It could be the manufacturer, it could have been Norfolk or San Diego. Those were the two air rework facilities that were set up, basically. It was a more effective way to run everything, but you had to train people in depth to go out on a ship and understand all 3 levels and how to fix things and have enough subcomponents to meet. Now, the subcomponents were the packages that they packed up and bought extra spares, which were very limited, and they would, under a little game we used to play, we played Monopoly.